How do you get supplies to millions of people that are isolated and you cannot bring in supplies over land or over the sea? Well, the only other option is air. And that's what the Berlin Airlift was, and this was in the late 1940s. And we're going to talk a little bit about the importance of the Berlin Airlift and what it means to us today. So let's get an understanding of the situation. After World War II, Berlin, the city in Germany, was divided into 4 sectors. And each of these 4 sectors was separately controlled. 3 were controlled by the Allies, and 1 was controlled by the Soviet Union. Now, the English, the United States, and France controlled the westernmost portion of the city, and the Soviet Union controlled the east portion of the city. Now, the Soviet Union wanted to control all of Berlin, and their tactic was going to be to starve all the other sectors of the city by cutting off supply routes. And the reason this would work for the Soviet Union is the entire city was actually surrounded by Soviet-controlled territory. So this left one option, which was air. Now, this was the first crisis of the Cold War. This is where the Soviet Union and the Allied powers were really going to flex their muscles, communism versus capitalism. And we decided that air was the only option and that it was going to work. And the way that we did this was start rotating, and it was really the Royal Air Force that started to pioneer the way that we did it. But what we did was we rotated cargo aircraft into the city, and the Soviets allowed this to happen because they believed it was impossible. In the first year alone, they flew a combined 200,000 flights. The Royal Air Force, Royal Australian Air Force, and the United States Air Force, which was new at the time. It was newly minted in 1947. This actually proved to be quite a nightmare for the or a logistical nightmare for all the individuals involved. But what they did was one of the most interesting things to me as an air traffic controller is they came up with something called the ladder method. And what they would do is they would stack the aircraft and they would depart in predetermined times. So one aircraft would depart, and 4 minutes later, one would depart behind that aircraft. So you have the first aircraft, and then the second aircraft would be 1,000 feet above and 4 minutes behind. And what this did was create spacing for when they came into land. The first aircraft would come down, and even if this second aircraft was delayed or got a little bit of ahead because he had a tailwind, he would still be safely above that aircraft and would be able to get that aircraft to the site. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So the airlift was a huge success, and if the airlift would have failed, it would have meant the Soviets would have had control of Berlin and eventually the entire control of the country of Germany, which is a very important ally to us now. And his plan was to advance the socialist agenda, and if he managed to hold on to Germany and keep Germany for the remainder of the Cold War, he also would have had other Eastern European states under his control. Obviously not his control anymore, but his successors. So we could not stand for this expansion. We found a peaceful way to get around it, and we were successful in our mission. We were successful in our mission to stop the Soviet expansion of communism in that portion of that portion of the world. And in closing, I'd like to say that this is very important because this was a very moral victory to us. It was big. It was a big win without losing any lives outside of accidents, and it really set us ahead to be the world leaders. Thank you.